This week on Right Now, should the state really decide who lives and who dies? I'm joined by Archie Battersbee's mother, Hollie Dance. She'll be talking about this week's High Court victory against the judge's original ruling. It grants them another chance to plead the case for their 12-year-old son's life support not to be turned off. To watch the full episode, including all our other guests, please click on Ickonic.com and start a free 7-day trial. On April the 7th of this year, a 12-year-old boy called Archie Battersbee was found unconscious at his Essex home. Archie suffered brain damage and a High Court judge ruled that Archie had died and that doctors could turn off his life support. Archie's parents, Hollie and Paul, challenged the court's decision and this week won an appeal against the ruling. They say Archie's heart is still beating and therefore treatment should continue. We're privileged to have Archie's mother, Hollie Dance, on the line with us now. Hi Hollie, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously I want to focus mainly on the positivity and the fantastic result you've had in High Court this week. But for our viewers that are from overseas that might not be so familiar with Archie's case, would you be able to give us a bit of a background as to what happened from April leading up to now?
Yes, of course. So on the 7th of April, myself and Archie, we'd been out for something to eat. To a vegetarian restaurant, been out for something to eat, popped into Tesco's on the way home to get some bits for the cinema. I always go to the cinema. Went home, potted around in the kitchen for a little while, just putting some clothes away. Then I went upstairs. Archie asked me if I could order him a coat. It was currently online to his brother, getting some ideas for new coats, and he had found one. So he asked me if I could order the coat. I said, yeah, I'll do it. We'll go pictures and then I'll do it when we get back and we're in bed later, Arch. And I said, all right, thanks, Mum. Went upstairs, said I'm just going to charge my phone, put a few things away and then we're going to go. Went upstairs, put my phone on charge. I took a couple of phone calls. Archie came in on the last phone call and he came into the bedroom and said, I've got some sweets for you. And he's got this big white drawstring swim bag. I just laughed at him. I said, no, you haven't. The rabbit's in the bag, Arch. As he approached my bed, the rabbit poked his head out the top of the bag. Obviously, the rabbit's safe. It wasn't like a carry bag on him. He loved his rabbit, or loves his rabbit. The rabbit's poked his head out, so we both just started giggling and laughing. I then said to Arch, okay, take the rabbit downstairs. Not going to be too long. So I'm assuming took the rabbit downstairs. A couple of minutes later, or a few minutes later, I've come out of the bedroom, called him because he was quiet. I've called him and thought he was in the bedroom opposite, which was Archie's bedroom, bang opposite my bedroom door, and his blue covers on the floor. Only there was no movement, so I realised very quickly Archie wasn't in now. Something caught my eye to the right of me, which is where the stairs are. And it was his rabbit at the top of the stairs. And then very quickly, I've noticed Archie there. That straight away, I was like, oh, take the rabbit downstairs. And then very quickly realised he had something around his neck. So I've gone round. Obviously, he's got this like hoop tied. It's underneath his chin, going around the back of his head. So I've instantly. Yelled, Archie, tried to pull him up and unhook the hoop over his neck. I couldn't do it. I couldn't hold him and do it at the same time. It's quite a big hoop. It wasn't tight around his neck. Tried to get him down. I couldn't. So I pulled the ligature forward. So it's like just resting under his chin. Run outside, scream for help, and then run back in and run straight back up. Managed to, obviously I'm in an absolute frenzy at this time, absolute state. Tried to break the hoop and I did. I managed to snap it, and then with that Archie's just become floppy and just fell. So as he's fallen, I haven't got no banister there. As he's fallen straight over to the hallway, like the floor, which is about an 8-foot drop. And then I've run down, like in a state really, just Archie, like trying to wake him up. CPR, went outside, screamed again, like help. My neighbour had come around the corner at that time. Like I said, call an ambulance. He's on the phone to the ambulance while I was giving Archie CPR. Breath was coming out of Archie's mouth when I was breathing in. And I was pumping, obviously, away, not really knowing what I'm doing, but just doing what I could, really. And then my neighbour took over, and then the ambulance arrived.
So what do you believe it was all about in terms of having this hoop around his neck?
First of all, I thought initially he'd just been playing about, and because the night before, which obviously we didn't realise until his sister arrived at the hospital, the night before, apparently he had it on his head and he was opening and closing her door,
right,
their bedroom door, and she told him to stop. So he then put it around his feet and he was opening and closing the door. And she told him to stop or get out of her bedroom, like siblings do. And he did, he stopped and spent the rest of the evening in her room watching TV, watching films. So yeah, initially I thought he was just playing about. Got no reasons whatsoever. Don't even cross my mind, not even for a second, that he was attempting to take his life. I've just got to say that, 'cause obviously I think that initially is what sort of comes to people's minds. Archie's a very, very happy child. Getting very geared up for his fight, his first MMA fight. He's in gymnastics. He's just ordered the coat, or wanted me to order the coat, obviously, that evening. Very, very happy boy. So yeah, that rules, obviously, that one well and truly out. So initially we thought he's had some sort of freak accident. It was very quickly then drawn to my attention, and it still might not be this. 4 days later, that someone went in on the 6-year-old child, and they were doing exactly the same as what Archie was doing. And when obviously she's like screaming, like, "What are you doing?" He was copying an online, I won't say the name, obviously I'm getting in trouble for that, but he was copying an online challenge. So, and apparently it is a bit of a thing that the kids are all copying at the moment. So now, obviously the police are looking in Archie's phone for me to see if they've got any evidence that he could have possibly been doing that.
Of course. So obviously the ambulance comes, takes Archie to hospital. How long was he in hospital before obviously it got involved with, the High Court and judges making decisions on Archie's behalf?
Right, so he arrived at Southend. So we found the ambulance at 4:11. He arrived at Southend, I think, don't quote me on that, just before 5. And then we didn't actually arrive. Obviously, they've stabilised him. They came in and told me the only contact I believe I actually had with them. I think I must have starting to feel a bit shocked by them, but the only nurse coming in and saying that Archie's making attempts to breathe, Mum. We've had to put him into neuroprotection to protect his brain. We're just waiting for the Panda team to come down from the Royal London Hospital. We waited hours, and we eventually arrived here at midnight.
Right, and did they make a decision very quickly in terms of Archie's well-being, or is it something that kind of progressed over?
No, very quickly, really. Within about 10 minutes, I was told he's probably not going to make it. And then a little while, he's going down for a CAT scan. And then a little while later, we've got basically that we're going to wait and see. And then no wait and see led to, because he come from Southend to have I think it's called a cranioscopy, which is where they relieve the swelling. So they cut the skull, relieve the swelling. I believe that's what happens. And that is why Southend Hospital sent him here, and that never took place.
So it feels then the decision was made far too quickly. So obviously I'm assuming then you've obviously disagreed with that decision. It's
Yes.
then gone to a judge who has agreed with them originally, with the hospital originally.
Well, so basically, with regards to the decision, so that was obviously on the first night. On day 3, obviously he's still here, so he did get through the night. Day 3, still here. We was called into a meeting with certain members of the team, clinical team, and told that Archie's brain dead. Within a couple of minutes, this was Archie's brain dead. We want to carry out a brain stem test, which is just a legal procedure basically to pronounce death, and then we won't be doing there's a DNR, so we won't be resuscitating him if he goes into cardiac arrest, which obviously I was like, what? 12 years old. Followed very quickly by talking about we'll have time to get friends up and family to say goodbye, and then a conversation with regards to organ donation will take place within about 2 minutes.
It seems like there's such a huge disconnect from the human element of the fact that, like you've said, this is a 12-year-old boy we're talking about.
Definitely no compassion or empathy at all.
So you've appealed, you've won that appeal, which is absolutely incredible. So what happens now? There's another hearing on July the 11th, is that correct?
Right, so there's actually been, yesterday was the 10th court appearance. There's been,
oh my goodness,
at least one a week, at least. It's been very tiring. The hospital had us in court within 2 weeks because we refused the brain stem testing. The court then awarded in the hospital's favour and went ahead with the brain stem testing despite the risks. They couldn't. They had to do a nerve a nerve test to see that Archie could respond to obviously this light test, and the nerve test failed. It showed that none of the Archie's muscles were could respond. So the hospital were asked whether Archie was on any muscle relaxing drugs. They actually asked 3 times and then terminated the test because it couldn't be carried out. So, yeah, and then obviously back to court, there's another 8 court appearances after that. The judge awarded on not yesterday, the one before, that Archie was likely to be dead, her words, likely to be dead on the probability of 51%, and based on an MRI image was pronounced likely to be dead on the 31st of May. And then obviously we've appealed, and that was overturned yesterday by the Court of Appeal.
Which is fantastic. I mean, the word likely is extraordinary. When you're dealing with the life of a 12-year-old boy, it doesn't matter whether
Definitely.
It's dealing with likely or unlikely. So, I mean, your legal team have kind of determined that, you know, mistakes were made in that judgment and that ruling.
Yes.
Obviously, they weren't taking yourself and your family and Archie's kind of will into it. It was all very matter of fact. What do you think will be different in July? Do you think that, you know, do you feel sort of like there's a fighting chance now?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this time, obviously, we haven't been allowed any medical experts outside, like independent, to come in and examine Archie. We're still not allowed now. And I'm just hoping that, obviously, the clinical team here put through before that Archie's deteriorating, because at the time feeds were being withheld from Arch. He lost over 2 stone in weight, and the reason for that was he wasn't absorbing food, which wasn't the case at all. He's absorbing very well. So he was then, I asked, could he then be given loperamide, which is basically like Imodium, to stop obviously it coming from the other end. After, first of all, I was told no, and then they said yes. My MP got involved in the meantime, and his feeds were then resumed and have been consistent since, and he's now gaining weight. He's gained weight. He holds his own body temperature at 36.5. He's just fought off sepsis. So since he's been likely to be dead, he's fought off sepsis. He's fought off a tummy bug, which explains why he needed the loperamide to start with. He's feeding, he's absorbing, and he's gaining weight. His heart's very strong, never had a problem there. I've just recently done a BMP test on Archie that reveals no damage on his heart. So from the first, or the one and only cardiac arrest, I think people are a bit confused for some reason. It's sort of gone out there that Archie suffered another cardiac arrest the last time we was in court, which wasn't the case. It was one, and that was the original, obviously, incident.
Of course. He sounds like an absolute warrior to be fighting through all this stuff. I find it strange, like, for me, I'm kind of, I'm thinking almost like, explain this to me like I'm 5. You're saying we want to get independent people to look at Archie, and they're saying no. Like,
Yes.
explain to me why I'm 5. Why someone wouldn't allow that? Like, surely you should be trying everything.
Well, obviously I've got my views on that, but I can't really say that. I think that's going to be for a much sort of future court case down the line, but I know why. But yeah, I think it's down to members of the public really to ask that question themselves. You know, what would be the hardship in, for one, allowing us our own independent team in? What would be the hardship in giving Archie time to recover? You know, according to the clinical team, he could have a heart attack and die at any moment. So just allow him time then. What's the problem? If he's going to go anyway, allow him a bit of time.
Exactly.
You know, I can't really sort of get my head around it. Well, I can, but obviously I think it's down to the public to get their head around that one.
No, and it asks bigger questions about, you know, what right certain people have to make these decisions, you know, to basically play God in a way.
Most definitely.
It's
Most
extraordinary.
Definitely. I say that apparently it's in the child's best interest and what Archie would have wanted. I'm Archie's mum, and a lot of the time Archie didn't want to go to school. But as his mum, I have to send him to school. You know, some decisions I don't think should be down to children to make. You know, and with regards to this decision, no, it shouldn't be down to a guardian that spoke to didn't speak to Archie, but visited Archie's room and was in the room for about 30 seconds. It shouldn't be down to her to make that decision to end Archie's life. And it shouldn't be down to the hospital, and it shouldn't be down to a judge. It should be down to us as a family, and it should be a personal decision, you know. And I think it is a personal choice. There's families out there that might want to not go through this, and I respect their views, and I think that people should respect mine. I believe my son's still there, and I believe he's going to make a recovery, and I think he just needs some time.
Yeah, and he should absolutely be given that. You know, my heart goes out to you. You know, as a parent myself, it's extraordinary to kind of I can't contemplate the emotions you've gone through since April, but the fact that you're fighting, you know, yourself and Paul, and you've won this case this week is fantastic. And but just wish you all the best. You know, everyone watching this,
I've smiled in nearly 11 weeks.
Yeah, I can honestly only imagine. It's but you're a true warrior, and thank you so much for talking to us. We really, really appreciate your time, and I know everyone watching this will have their fingers crossed and is rooting for you and Archie and
brilliant.
And
the support's been amazing. Everyone's been brilliant.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hollie. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.